Good evening, Bahamas. On the broadcast tonight. Another police shooting in the capital leaves 2 suspects dead. Plus, the health minister talks about the future of NHI. And police celebrate the spirit of Christmas.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news, the weekend edition, and thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Knowles. Her Majesty's coroner is investigating another police-involved shooting that has left 2 men dead. The incident occurred shortly after 1 this morning when police were in the area of a bar on Tonic Williams-Darling Highway. They reportedly observed 2 men standing near a silver vehicle and engaged in an altercation with others. Now, police say one of the men, who was in possession of a firearm, pointed it in the direction of those gathered and fired a shot. Officers, being fearful for their lives, and other bystanders engaged the men, who got into their vehicle and sped off. The officers pursued the vehicle, which crashed a short distance away, and it is reported that the men were ejected from the vehicle. It was at this time that officers discovered that the men were shot. 1 suspect died on the scene, while the other was taken to the hospital, where he later died. A shotgun was recovered from the vehicle. Last week, police shot and killed a man who reportedly attempted to knock them down. In other news this evening, on the heels of announcements made by the chairman of the National Health Insurance Board about the future of the program, the Minister of Health is also weighing in on what went wrong in the past and what it will take to get it right in the future. Giorgio Bain reports.
Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands says while they did not have to start from scratch with the National Health Insurance Plan, a lot of work has to be done to get it up to standard. And they're also trying to measure how much this is going to cost the Bahamian people. Where would the money come from? Was a question skillfully and sometimes not so skillfully avoided by the previous administration, according to Sands, who added that it was political kryptonite for the Christie administration, which he said avoided words like tax, assessment, charge, or levy to fund the program.
For the first time, I think we have to look the Bahamian people in the eye and speak truth about what this program is, what it can do, and the fact that ultimately Bahamians are going to pay for this. The same way that they would have paid the $124 million that was promised by the previous administration, the same way that they are paying the $40 million for this NHI plan. The money is not going to miraculously appear out of the sky. And so Bahamians need to know that they're going to get value for money.
Chairman of the National Health Insurance Authority Board, Dr. Robin Roberts, suggested salary deduction as a means of sustaining the program and gave a deadline of 2 years to have it fully up and running. Sands admitted that they are still working out some of the kinks.
I think, yes, a salary deduction is a reasonable way to do it. When that could happen, 2 years, Dr. Robin Roberts suggests, I think that's probably not an unreasonable estimate.
Sands says while many want a definitive answer as to the individual costs, it is simply going to depend on what the NHI holders want.
Cost of this product depends on what it is that you're promising. You cannot promise, I can't say you cannot, you ought not promise something that you're going to either choke on or that you can't afford to pay. So if I say to the Bahamian public, look, here's the menu of all the things that you can order. I want you to look in your wallet and see what it is that you can afford. Because there's no point getting caviar if all you could afford is conch.
The budget for NHI was seemingly almost cut in half, and according to Sands, it's going to have to work.
Going to limit roughly the amount of benefits in primary care to about 15 million, to provide some type of catastrophic care services to be defined, roughly 15 million, and then about $10 million for the secretariat or for the authority now. But that's a stopgap. That doesn't envision how does NHI move forward and be sustainable.
Reporting for our News Weekend Edition, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Well, Attorney General Carl Bethel addressed concerns over the legality of the existence of the NHI Secretariat and the newly established NHI Authority Board. Both the chairman of the Authority Board and the Minister of Health raised concerns as to whether the actions taken by the Secretariat could be made retroactive to the Authority Board. Bethel told our news what legal advice he gave.
Well, my officials have looked at the course of events and the history of the matter. And to the best of my information, having seen the final opinion, the acts previously done by the Secretariat prior to the appointment of the board are acts that are within the ostensible authority of the government at that time, and therefore they need only be ratified by the board, and they will be fully legal.
According to the Minister of Health, Dr. Dwayne Sands, the Secretariat will be made into the Authority Board with the exceptions of some new hires and a few other changes. Bethel added the importance of the Authority Board to support the legal framework of NHI.
But as I understand, the advice is that the board has the power to ratify, that they are binding, and so they'll determine on what terms and how they do it. It's not for me to do more than to advise what the law is and what the potential under the law is, and it is for them to work out how best to apply the law.
Meantime, Minister for the Public Service and National Insurance, Brenzil Rolle, addressed recent terminations at various government ministries earlier this week outside of Cabinet. The minister was addressing concerns about the government's decision not to renew contracts of some employees whose contracts had come to an end.
Contracts have expired, and we have determined in some instances we are not renewing the contracts.
His response came days after 30 people were sent home from the Department of Inland Revenue. While Rolle's explanation for the non-renewal was vague, he said this exercise is a part of the government's plan to improve the quality of work in the public sector.
We've always said that we are directed to identify individuals who are basically doing their jobs in the public service, and these individuals will continue to do a good job, and those who continue to do good jobs, we will maintain them. And by attrition, those numbers will to some degree be reduced, but we are looking to find out how best the public service could be more efficient.
According to Rolle, while the government is minded of the growing number of unemployed people, it has to do what's in the best interest of the country.
We can only work in the best interest of the Bahamian people. The IDB has put out a suggestion as to what we should do, where we should be. But the government is mindful of what the IDB statement is, but we must work in our own best interests.
And we'll take a break here, but still ahead tonight. Police mark the beginning of the holiday season in a special way. That story and more when our news returns.